Did you know Elvis Presley reportedly searched for his dead twin brother through seances? Or that he amassed a library containing thousands of books on religion, metaphysics, and the occult? He also reportedly gave away millions of dollars in spontaneous acts of generosity, sometimes telling recipients that God had told him to do it. And some accounts claim he had a profound spiritual vision involving Jesus Christ during a near-fatal illness as a child. He was also said to be deeply fascinated by the hidden meanings in numbers, believing they held clues to his destiny. Number 5. His lifelong love affair with gospel music wasn't just about the sound. From the very beginning, music was intertwined with faith for Elvis Aaron Presley. Growing up dirt poor in Tupelo, Mississippi, the Assembly of God Church was a central part of life for the Presley family. Gladys Presley, his beloved mother, often took young Elvis to services filled with passionate preaching, ecstatic worship, and crucially, soul-stirring gospel music. This wasn't the reserved hymn singing of some denominations. It was hand-clapping, foot-stomping, heart-pounding music performed with raw emotion and conviction. He absorbed the sounds of the choirs, the harmonies of the quartets, the call and response patterns, and the sheer spiritual fervor. These early experiences imprinted deeply on him. He reportedly said later in life that gospel music was the purest thing there is on this earth. Even as rock and roll made him the most famous man on the planet, his connection to gospel never wavered. It was more than just a musical genre he enjoyed. It was reportedly a spiritual lifeline, a source of comfort, and a way to connect with something deeper than the often chaotic and isolating world of superstardom. Friends and bandmates often recounted how Elvis would unwind after electrifying concerts, not by partying wildly, though that certainly happened too, but by gathering around a piano and the Stamps Quartet, particularly J.D. Sumner and the Stamps Quartet, or the Imperials, and singing gospel hymns until the early hours of the morning. These impromptu sessions were said to be moments of genuine joy and spiritual release for him. He knew the lyrics and harmonies to hundreds of gospel songs by heart. His love for gospel wasn't just a private affair. He insisted on recording gospel music throughout his career, even when record executives might have preferred more commercially guaranteed rock or pop hits. His first gospel album, His Hand in Mine, 1960, was a passion project recorded shortly after his return from the Army. It was followed by How Great Thou Art, 1967, and He Touched Me, 1972. All three albums earned him Grammy Awards. In fact, his only competitive Grammy wins during his lifetime were for his gospel recordings. This fact reportedly pleased him immensely, validating his dedication to the music he felt was most meaningful. The songs he chose often reflected themes of redemption, hope, finding peace, and reliance on a higher power. Themes that perhaps resonated with his own personal struggles and spiritual searching. Tracks like Peace in the Valley, How Great Thou Art, He Touched Me, Amazing Grace, and Swing Down Sweet Chariot were performed with a palpable sincerity that transcended mere entertainment. When Elvis sang gospel, many observers noted a different quality in his voice and demeanor, a reverence, a vulnerability, a sense of tapping into something sacred. He wasn't just performing, he was testifying. J.D. Sumner, the legendary bass singer whose Stamps Quartet backed Elvis for years, often spoke about Elvis's deep knowledge and love of gospel. He recalled Elvis calling him late at night just to talk about gospel music, or to sing a particular song over the phone. It was a shared passion that forged a strong bond between them. Elvis reportedly admired the intricate harmonies and the emotional depth of gospel quartets, groups he had idolized since childhood, like the Blackwood Brothers and the Statesman Quartet. He often attended the National Quartet Convention in Memphis, sometimes just sitting in the audience, soaking it all in. Even his stage performances, famous for their high energy and sensuality, often incorporated elements derived from the passionate preachers and gospel singers he witnessed as a child. The dramatic gestures, the powerful vocal delivery, the ability to connect emotionally with an audience, these skills were honed, in part, in the church. While his rock and roll performances shocked conservative elements of society, the underlying performance style had roots in the very religious culture that sometimes condemned him. This connection to gospel music provided a kind of spiritual anchor throughout his tumultuous life. When facing personal crises, health problems, or the pressures of fame, he reportedly turned to gospel music for solace. It reminded him of his roots, his mother's faith, and a sense of divine presence that he seemed to crave. It wasn't just music. It was prayer, meditation, and a connection to the spiritual world that felt authentic and grounding to him, even as he explored other more esoteric beliefs. The raw, emotional honesty of gospel music seemed to speak directly to his soul in a way few other things could. It remained a constant, a source of spiritual nourishment from his humble beginnings to the final years of his life. His last known recording session just before his death included gospel tracks. The sound that first captured his heart in a small Mississippi church remained with him until the very end. Number 4. He was secretly obsessed with numbers and hidden meanings. Beyond the familiar territory of his Christian upbringing and gospel music, Elvis Presley reportedly developed a deep fascination with the esoteric world of numerology, the belief that numbers hold mystical significance and can reveal hidden truths about individuals, events, and the universe itself. This interest wasn't widely publicized during his lifetime, but was extensively documented by those closest to him in his later years, particularly his hairdresser and spiritual confidant, Larry Geller. According to Geller and others, Elvis didn't just dabble in numerology. He actively studied it and sought to apply its principles to his own life. He reportedly became convinced that numbers held keys to understanding his destiny, his personality, and the spiritual forces at play around him. He owned books on the subject and would apparently spend hours discussing numerical patterns and their supposed meanings. This fascination seemed to dovetail with his broader search for hidden knowledge and spiritual understanding that marked the latter half of his life. One number that reportedly held particular significance for Elvis was the number 8. In numerology, the number 8 is often associated with power, material success, authority, and karma. Elvis was born on January 8th, 1935. He reportedly saw this as highly significant, a numerical signature that pointed towards his destiny of achieving great fame and fortune, but perhaps also hinted at the karmic challenges and responsibilities that came with such power. He might look for the number 8 appearing in significant events or dates, interpreting it as a sign or confirmation. His interest extended beyond just his birth date. He would reportedly analyze the numerical values of names, his own, those of people close to him, and words using various numerological systems, like Pythagorean or Chaldean, where letters are assigned numerical values. He might calculate the life path number, destiny number, or soul urge number for himself and others, believing these calculations offered insights into character, potential, and life purpose. For Elvis, who often felt misunderstood and isolated by his unique fame, numerology perhaps offered a framework, a hidden language that could help make sense of his extraordinary life and the people in it. Larry Geller, who introduced Elvis to a wide range of metaphysical and spiritual literature, likely fueled this interest in numerology. Geller recounts numerous conversations where they would discuss the numerical significance of various events, song titles, or even license plates. Elvis would reportedly look for patterns, synchronicities, and messages encoded in the numbers he encountered daily. It became another lens through which he viewed the world, searching for confirmation of a deeper hidden order beneath the surface of everyday reality. This belief in the power of numbers could sometimes influence his decisions or interpretations of events, according to some accounts. A string of appearances of a particular number might be seen as a positive or negative omen. The date of a concert, the address of a house, the sum of digits in a significant year, all could potentially be subjected to numerological analysis in his quest for meaning. It was part of a larger pattern of looking for signs and guidance from the universe, a belief that reality was layered and that clues to its deeper workings were available if one knew how to look. His interest wasn't purely intellectual. It seemed to be deeply personal. For someone whose life path was so unusual, so seemingly preordained in its trajectory towards global fame, the idea that numbers could confirm or explain this destiny might have been comforting. It suggested that his life wasn't just a random accident of talent and timing, but part of a larger, intricate design that could be deciphered at least partially through the mystical language of numbers. Furthermore, the concept of karma, often associated with numbers like 8 in numerology, likely resonated with Elvis's developing spiritual worldview, which increasingly incorporated ideas from Eastern religions. More on that later. The notion that actions have consequences, potentially reflected in numerical patterns, fit with his growing sense that life involved spiritual lessons and balancing cosmic scales. While often kept private, this fascination with numerology reveals another facet of Elvis's complex spiritual landscape. It shows a mind actively searching for meaning beyond the conventional, willing to explore esoteric systems in hopes of finding answers to life's big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? For Elvis, numbers weren't just for counting. They were potentially whispers from the universe, coded messages offering glimpses into the hidden architecture of his own extraordinary destiny. He collected books on the subject, studied charts, and reportedly discussed findings with his inner circle, always seeking patterns, always looking for the meaning behind the number. Number 3. He dived deep into mysticism and religions from around the world. While Elvis Presley always maintained a connection to his Christian roots, particularly through gospel music, his spiritual journey took him far beyond the confines of the Assembly of God Church. Starting primarily in the mid-1960s, he embarked on an intense and deeply personal exploration of mysticism, esoteric philosophies, and world religions, particularly those originating in the East. This wasn't a casual interest. It reportedly became a consuming passion, a driving force in his quest for meaning, purpose, and relief from the existential burdens of his immense fame. A key catalyst for this dive into the esoteric was Larry Geller, who became Elvis's personal lettist in 1964. Geller was himself deeply immersed in spiritual studies and began sharing books and ideas with Elvis, finding a remarkably receptive audience. Elvis, reportedly feeling a spiritual void and grappling with questions about life, death, and his own identity, devoured the material Geller provided. His bedroom and later his office at Graceland began to fill with books on subjects far removed from mainstream thought. He reportedly read extensively on theosophy, a mystical philosophical system established in the late 19th century by Helena Blavatsky. Theosophy seeks to uncover hidden knowledge within all the world's religions and explores concepts like karma, reincarnation, masters of wisdom, Mahatmas, and the evolution of the soul. Elvis was said to be particularly drawn to the idea of ancient wisdom and the interconnectedness of different spiritual paths. He owned and reportedly studied Blavatsky's complex works like Isis Unveiled and The Secret Doctrine, heavily underlining passages and making notes in the margins. Another profoundly influential book was The Impersonal Life, an anonymous spiritual text first published in 1914. This book emphasizes the idea that the true self is the divine consciousness, Oig's I am within, separate from the ego or personality. Elvis reportedly resonated deeply with its message, finding comfort in the notion of an eternal, impersonal, divine presence residing within him. He apparently gave away hundreds of copies of this book to friends, family, band members, and even casual acquaintances, urging them to read it, believing it held crucial spiritual truths. It became a cornerstone of his evolving metaphysical beliefs. His exploration extended significantly into Eastern religions. He became fascinated with Hinduism and Buddhism, drawn to concepts like karma, the law of cause and effect, reincarnation, the soul's journey through multiple lifetimes, and the possibility of achieving enlightenment or self-realization. He reportedly read the Bhagavad Gita, a foundational text of Hinduism, exploring its teachings on duty, action, and devotion. One figure and organization that captured his deep interest was Paramahansa Yogananda, the Indian yogi who introduced many Westerners to meditation and Kriya Yoga through his organization, the Self-Realization Fellowship, SRF, and his widely read book, Autobiography of a Yogi. Elvis reportedly read Yogananda's autobiography multiple times and was captivated by the accounts of saints, miracles, and the path to direct communion with God. He felt a strong connection to Yogananda's teachings on the universality of religion and the scientific techniques for spiritual growth. In 1965, Elvis, along with Larry Geller and his wife Priscilla, actually visited the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine in Pacific Palisades, California. This beautiful site, with its tranquil gardens, lake, and temple dedicated to world peace and harmony among religions, reportedly made a strong impression on him. He met with Sri Dayamata, the then president of SRF, and a direct disciple of Yogananda. They reportedly had long conversations about spiritual matters. Elvis apparently expressed his admiration for Yogananda's teachings and his own struggles with fame and finding inner peace. He reportedly felt a sense of serenity and connection there that was rare in his life. This visit wasn't just a tourist stop. It was part of his active search for spiritual guidance and understanding from diverse sources. He also explored aspects of Judaism, particularly Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, and was interested in the spiritual beliefs of Native Americans. He wore jewelry with symbols like the Jewish chai, meaning life, and the Egyptian ankh, a symbol of life, alongside his cross. This wasn't necessarily about converting to these faiths, but rather about seeking wisdom and truth wherever he could find it, believing that essential spiritual principles could be found across different traditions. His library reportedly contained books on Rosicrucianism, psychic phenomena, UFOs, ancient civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria, and various forms of divination. This intense, spiritual search often occurred behind the scenes, hidden from the public eye, and even from some members of his own entourage, known as the Memphis Mafia, some of whom were reportedly skeptical or concerned about these unconventional interests. But for Elvis, this exploration was vital. He was looking for answers that his traditional upbringing hadn't fully provided, searching for tools to cope with the extraordinary pressures and paradoxes of his life. He reportedly saw connections between the teachings of Jesus and the concepts he encountered in Eastern and esoteric texts, believing they all pointed towards the same fundamental truths about God, the soul, and the universe. His journey into mysticism wasn't about abandoning his past, but about integrating diverse streams of wisdom into a broader, more personal spiritual framework. It was the quest of a restless soul seeking ultimate reality beyond the glittering facade of the king of rock and roll. Number 2, he believed he was on a mission from God. Seriously. Beyond specific doctrines or religious practices, a core element of Elvis Presley's reported spiritual belief system was a profound sense of destiny, a feeling that his life and immense talent were part of a divine plan. He reportedly came to believe, particularly in his later years, that he wasn't just an entertainer. He was on a mission guided by God, with a specific purpose to fulfill on earth. This belief wasn't always clearly articulated, but it surfaced in conversations with close confidants and seemed to underpin some of his actions and his perspective on his own extraordinary fame. This sense of destiny might have had roots in his early life. There's a story, recounted by family members and later by Elvis himself to some friends, about a profound experience he had as a young boy. During a serious illness, possibly related to a tornado that struck Tupelo, he reportedly saw a vision of Jesus Christ or felt a divine presence assuring him he would recover and that his life had a special purpose. While the details vary in different accounts, the core idea is that he felt chosen or marked for something significant from a young age. His unlikely meteoric rise from extreme poverty to unprecedented global fame could easily have reinforced this feeling. It seemed almost too improbable to be mere chance. As he delved deeper into spiritual and metaphysical studies, this nascent feeling reportedly crystallized into a more defined belief in a divine mission. The books he read often spoke of souls having preordained purposes or karmic paths. Texts like The Impersonal Life emphasized connecting with the divine I Am presence within, suggesting an inner source of guidance. Elvis began to see his ability to connect with millions of people through music, not just as a talent, but as a God-given tool for a higher purpose. What was this mission? According to reports from those like Larry Geller, Elvis felt his purpose was to uplift people, to bring joy and emotional release through his music, and perhaps even to subtly steer people towards spiritual awareness. He saw the love and adoration directed at him as something powerful that needed to be channeled responsibly. He reportedly felt that God had given him his voice and charisma for a reason beyond just achieving personal fame and fortune. This belief could manifest in various ways. His legendary generosity, for instance, was sometimes explicitly linked to this sense of divine prompting. There are numerous accounts of him spontaneously giving away cars, especially Cadillacs, jewelry, and large sums of money to friends, employees, and even total strangers. On some occasions, he reportedly told the recipients something along the lines of, "God told me to give this to you," or "I'm just passing along what God gave me." This wasn't just extravagant spending. In his mind, it was potentially part of fulfilling his mission, sharing the blessings bestowed upon him as guided by a higher power. His intense desire to connect with his audience on an emotional level during performances could also be seen through this lens. He wasn't just singing songs. He was pouring his soul out, trying to create a shared experience of joy, release, or even spiritual transcendence. The scarves he sweated on and threw to adoring fans became almost like relics, symbols of a connection that felt more than just celebrity worship to him, and perhaps to them. He seemed to feel a responsibility to give people something meaningful in return for their devotion. However, this reported belief in a divine mission also brought immense pressure. If his life had a specific purpose ordained by God, was he living up to it? The excesses of his lifestyle, the prescription drug use, the unhealthy eating habits, the isolation reportedly caused him great internal conflict and guilt, partly because he felt he might be failing his mission or misusing the gifts he'd been given. He wrestled with the paradox of being seen as a near deity by fans while feeling deeply flawed and human, struggling to live up to the divine potential he believed he possessed. Conversations reported by friends suggest he sometimes spoke explicitly about feeling guided, about receiving flashes of insight or intuition that he attributed to God or a higher power. He might make decisions based on these feelings, trusting an inner guidance system that he believed was divinely inspired. This could relate to song choices, career moves, or personal interactions. The weight of this perceived mission might have contributed to his fascination with spiritual knowledge. He was perhaps seeking confirmation, guidance, and the tools necessary to fulfill his purpose and navigate the overwhelming complexities of his life. He wanted to understand the rules of the spiritual game he felt he was playing. Ultimately, this belief in a divine mission paints a picture of Elvis not just as a cultural icon, but as a man grappling with profound existential questions about his own significance. He reportedly saw his unprecedented fame not as an end in itself, but as a platform for something more meaningful, a task assigned to him by the ultimate authority. Whether he felt he succeeded or failed in his mission is impossible to know, but the belief itself reportedly shaped his inner world, his motivations, and his understanding of his place in the universe. It added another layer of complexity to the man behind the legend, suggesting a soul striving, however imperfectly, to align his extraordinary life with what he perceived as a divine calling. Number 1. The Bible was his constant companion, but not in the way you might think. Despite Elvis Presley's deep dive into Eastern religions, mysticism, and esoteric philosophies, the Holy Bible remained a constant and central text throughout his life. However, his relationship with it reportedly evolved beyond the literal interpretations of his Southern Baptist upbringing into something more personal, mystical, and integrated with the diverse spiritual ideas he encountered later. It wasn't a case of abandoning the Bible for other beliefs, but rather of reading it through a new, broader lens, searching for deeper, universal truths within its pages. From childhood, the Bible was a familiar presence. His mother, Gladys, whom he adored, was devout, and Bible stories and teachings were part of his early education. He carried this foundation with him always. Throughout his life, he reportedly kept Bibles close by, at Graceland in hotel rooms while on tour, even allegedly carrying a small one with him sometimes. He didn't just own Bibles, he actively read them. Multiple accounts from friends and associates describe Elvis spending hours reading the Bible, often late at night or during quiet moments. Larry Geller, in particular, emphasizes that Elvis's exploration of other spiritual texts didn't replace his Bible reading, it supplemented it. Elvis was reportedly looking for connections, for the underlying unity between the teachings of Jesus and the wisdom he found in books about yoga, theosophy, or numerology. He believed, according to Geller, that all true religions pointed towards this same ultimate reality, and he sought evidence of this within the Christian scriptures. His Bibles were reportedly not pristine objects kept on a shelf. They were working tools for his spiritual quest. He underlined passages extensively, made notes in the margins, and marked verses that resonated with him personally. These marked-up Bibles, some of which have been preserved, offer glimpses into his private spiritual thoughts. He was reportedly drawn to passages emphasizing love, forgiveness, inner guidance, the kingdom of God within, and the mystical aspects of Jesus' teachings. He might interpret familiar verses in unconventional ways, informed by the metaphysical concepts he was studying. For example, he might see references to reincarnation or karma hidden within certain parables or Old Testament stories, or interpret the kingdom of God is within you, Luke chapter 17 verse 21, in light of the teachings from the impersonal life about the divine I Am presence. He was particularly interested in the figure of Jesus Christ. While his understanding may have broadened beyond traditional Christian doctrine, his reverence for Jesus reportedly remained profound. He saw Jesus not just as the Son of God in the exclusive Christian sense, but perhaps also as a master teacher, an enlightened being who understood and taught universal spiritual laws, similar perhaps to figures like Buddha or Yogananda in his evolving worldview. He reportedly sought to understand the deeper, esoteric meaning behind Jesus' words and actions. His relationship with the Bible was intensely personal, not necessarily tied to organized religion or specific dogma. He reportedly disliked hypocrisy and dogmatism in religion, and preferred a direct, experiential connection to the divine. The Bible served as one crucial source for that connection, a touchstone he returned to again and again. When struggling or seeking comfort, he would reportedly turn to familiar psalms or passages from the Gospels. This coexistence of the Bible with seemingly contradictory beliefs, like reincarnation, might seem paradoxical, but for Elvis it apparently wasn't. He seemed to operate on the principle of finding truth wherever it could be found, synthesizing ideas into his own unique spiritual tapestry. He might discuss biblical passages with friends, comparing interpretations or seeking insights, always probing beneath the surface layer of the text. He reportedly owned different versions of the Bible and compared translations, searching for nuances in meaning. His reading wasn't passive. It was an active engagement, a dialogue with the text in the context of his broader spiritual search. He saw the Bible not as the only source of truth, but as a profoundly important and powerful one that held keys to understanding God, humanity, and his own tumultuous life. Even his beloved gospel music, deeply rooted in biblical themes, served as a constant reinforcement of this connection. Singing about salvation, grace, and the power of Jesus kept those core concepts alive for him, existing alongside his explorations of karma and the chakras. In essence, the Bible was perhaps the foundation upon which Elvis built his increasingly complex spiritual structure. It provided the language, the central figures, and the foundational stories that framed his lifelong quest. While he looked east and explored the metaphysical, he never fully abandoned the book that had shaped his earliest understanding of faith. It remained a primary source of guidance, comfort, and mystery for him, a constant companion on his journey, read and reread not just with the eyes of a simple believer, but with the searching intensity of a seeker of existence, underlining passages until the very end,